How's it going, everybody? My name is Jim and welcome to Restoration Projects. This video is going to be an overview of the Delta Triple Duty Grinder. From what I've been able to find in my research, this grinder was first released in 1935. It came in a couple different variants. There was the belt driven, the single phase, and the three-phase model. The three-phase model was a half horsepower and the single phase model was a 1/3 horsepower. Right there you can see the cutaway that showed the internal workings of the motor. And as we pan down here, you can see the pedal slow grinder. This is the model that I have. And right there you can see the price of $59.50. Back in 1935, that's how much these things cost. Today, in the year 2022, that would be $1,286. These were not cheaply made machines. They were commercial grade to light industrial machines designed to be used every day. They show the pictures here of them being used in different industries, whether job shops, machine shops, or woodworking shops. You'll notice that safety glasses weren't a thing, and even having a cigarette hanging out of the mouth was a pretty common practice back then. These grinders were advertised with a shield and two lights on each side of that shield, so that would keep the operator from getting hit by the sparks and everything else that gets thrown off these grinders. I've attached this link to this brochure in the video description below, so if you want to take an in-depth look at it, you can. So let's go out in the shop and take a look at what I have, and let's go over it. This is my Delta Triple Duty 7-inch grinder. So the story of how I got this is kind of cool. This is a local machine, and I bought this in May of 2021 from Klein Jewelers in downtown Portland, Oregon. The store was going out of business, and it had been in the family for 3 generations. The family member that was selling it to me said that it was purchased by his grandfather in the 1930s. He didn't know exactly when in the 30s. From what I can find date-wise, trying to match tags and just the style of the machine, I think that this was made probably around 1937. The way you see it sitting here is I have two accessories on here. I have a drill bit grinder and a hand plane blade sharpener. So first I guess we'll talk about the blade sharpener. And it's a 2-piece design, and you have this track up on the top that this bar will ride in, and you have this little well right here, and that's for the screw right here to ride in as well. And it has a micro feet adjustment, so I can adjust this bar up and down, which then in turn shows how much, adjust how much material you're removing from your blade. And the way this works is this is a blade off of a 4.5-inch Stanley, and you have an angle adjustment right there, so you can make sure that's a perfect 90-degree angle. You slide it in, and then this bar clamps down on it. It's clamped down, set it in this track here, and you adjust the track, the angle of this whole assembly here to match the bevel that you're trying to cut in your blade. If it looks like it's kind of steep and way up at the top here, that's because it is, and that's one to match the bevel of the blade, and that's also partly because this is a 6-inch grinding wheel I have here. 7-inch grinders were common back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, but they slowly phased out to doing either a 6-inch grinding wheel or 8-inch grinding wheels. Those became the industry standards. So trying to find a 7 by 3/4 inch grinding wheel is darn near impossible these days. The closest I've been able to find is a 7 by 1-inch wheel, which I have on this side. This is a 80 grit. This wheel over here is a 120 grit. I did have to make some modifications to this to make it work. Specifically, I had to make a tool rest holder. So we're all used to seeing your basic tool rest holder that sits in here like this. But this is too narrow of a channel right here. And I did not want to modify the original tool rest, so I grabbed a chunk of leftover steel I had laying around, and I modified it so this would be the tool rest that sits in here. The way that these are set up is that these are all cast iron. There's no stamped steel on these, and when you're working with one of these triple duty grinders, they just feel solid. They don't feel cheesy at all. Including the arms that hold the accessories or the grinding surfaces. This is made out of steel here. I think it's probably cat. Oh, it might be hot rolled. Anyway, heavy duty steel here. That's a two-piece design. This first piece right here slides into this channel, same one that this drill bit grinder's in, and then you tighten a screw. It holds it up against the two wings of the channel, and that's what holds it flush or at the right angle to this wheel. Then you have this arm here, and then you can adjust your height of your tool rest to whatever size wheel you have and whatever you're trying to grind. So it just feels heavy, and it, you don't feel like you're going to break it like you would with a smaller, some of the smaller grinders you see these days. As far as the drill bit grinder goes, this, make sure I give you the right information. This is a Delta model 1296. And this was a factory option that they sold with these triple duty grinders. And it's kind of a complicated piece the way it works, but it's the geometry of how, when it's working properly and when you get this thing dialed in, you can cut really quick and you can sharpen blades really accurately with this. So there is quite the learning curve to it, but it is a pretty cool design. And these accessories that you see on here, the plain blade sharpener and this drill bit sharpener, they didn't come with this when I bought this. I bought this with just the basic, these two tool rests that you see right here. Everything else I picked up off eBay or locally. I paid $300 for the grinder with just these tool rests here. And the blades, or the grinding wheels that were in here, were completely toast. As far as what I had to do to get it running, it was in running condition when I bought it. They had been using it for the past, 60, 70 years. And all I did was replace the board, because I didn't want to have any electrical issues with it, because it was kind of getting a little frayed. The sheathing was starting to crack on the wires. And I added in LED light bulbs. They're just direct replacements here for the old incandescent light bulbs. So it made it a lot brighter and easier to use. As far as the base, this was an earlier design where it would have this little table here, and then you have these two water cups here where you would add water so you could cool your part as you're grinding on it. Hopefully it'll show up in the video, it might not, but on the back side here, there's two little holes on both sides of this guard, the wheel guard, and that was designed to have a rod go in there that would hold your water cups in the later generations. The later generations of these didn't have this table here. So that's what leads me to believe this is probably one of the first generations. Also, it's a 1/3 horsepower. The newer ones were 1/2 horsepower, and I believe those could take a 1-inch diameter wheel, where this could only take a 3/4 inch diameter wheel. So what I'm going to do is I'll try to bring you in a little bit closer here with the camera so you can get an idea of how these two accessories here work, and just kind of get a little bit better overview of them. So I have a camera sitting right in front of me, and this is kind of the position that I sit in when I'm running this. So I'm off about a 45-degree angle of the grinder, and this is the drill bit sharpener right here. So the first order of business when you get this thing installed is you find out the closest size of what drill bit you're sharpening. So I'm drilling a 1/2 inch, or grinding a 1/2 inch drill bit, so I set this bar right here to 1/2 inch. Then I look on the top here, and then this will tell me how far to have the stick out. So the stick out is from the edge of the part right here to the tip of the drill bit, so you can see on here. I'm going to see if I can zoom in and make this a little bit clearer. I apologize. So there's the stick out. So that's how much stick out you want from your drill bit, from this edge right here to the top edge of this drill bit. So you want to have that, so from 5/8 to 1/8, you want to have that about 1/8 inch out. So I probably have this sticking out a little bit more than I need to. We'll zoom back out here. And then what will happen is this part here rotates, and as you walk it in, you're rotating like this. When you get closer, it'll start touching the grinding wheel, and that's what allows you to cut that back cut in on this edge right here. I'm going to move the camera and make it so it's a little bit easier to see what exactly is going on here. So I apologize if this gets shaky. So I push it all the way up to the stop. As you can see right here, I'm lifting it up, and it's probably hard to tell, but that is, I'm cutting a right angle onto this drill bit right there. So if I was to turn this on, then I would just be able to slowly advance this in and start taking off material. So once you do one side of the drill bit, you pull it back, rotate this back, and you have this stop here. So this stop keeps your drill bit in the same distance. Rotate this off here, spin this one turn, half a turn there, make sure everything's set back and setting down on the stop here, tighten it down, and then you go back and you sharpen the other side. That keeps both sides ground off the same amount of material, so you're not creating a high side on one and a low side on the other. As far as adjustability on this thing, this knob right here is what adjusts the whole mechanism in and out. So this is how much material you're removing. And then you have this spot right here, this arm, and when you twist it, it will actually move this whole assembly backwards. So you can get, depending on what drill you're trying to sharpen, if you want it closer to the wheel or further away or in a different spot, you can do that. Same thing on this side. You can adjust this, and this will adjust this part out. So there's a lot of adjustability with this thing, and that's where it gets kind of complicated, is you're trying to find what the best geometry is for what you're cutting here. And so it can get a little, feel a little overwhelming at first, but once you get the hang of it, this is a really, really handy tool. And it does a really, really good job. So that little knob right there, that is the stop. So I'll give you a better angle. So when I'm grinding it, I'm just pushing it up to the stop and then rotating it. And then I turn this. And this knob that I'm turning here with my 2 fingers, that is what is advancing it into the grinding wheel. So really cool design, just would say a little bit overwhelming at first. It took me quite a few tries to get that dialed in, but once I had it dialed in, I could really sharpen a lot of drill bits super fast and accurately. All right, I am all set up here. I have a drill bit in here. Everything's adjusted perfectly, so I have it set so when I take my first pass, I'm just going to walk it in, and I'm just going to be rotating a drill bit up and down like this as I walk it into the spinning wheel here. I've cleared off all the other accessories off the machine so nothing's going to fall into the wheels, and we are ready to go. Got my safety glasses on and my hearing protection on. Here we are on the other side, and this is the plane blade sharpener. So, as I said before, we have our plane blade. It's clamped in here. This is a 90-degree angle, so you can actually set this angle gauge to whatever tool you're sharpening. And we're going to bring it in here, and I'll show you kind of how this works. Pardon me, I have the camera in front of me, so it makes it a little cumbersome. So that's how it sits in there. So you have your micro adjuster, so I'll pull it back and you can see that it's slowly pulling this piece back here. And then when I go to adjust the plane bevel, make sure we're lined up. You can see right there, so I'm going to get my camera in focus. I do apologize for the shoddy photography. And as I move that micro adjustment in, you can see that bevel is pretty darn close right there. So it might be a little bit high on the tip, but that's kind of the idea, is you try to get that bevel as close to the factory edge that you're trying to sharpen as possible. So that's how it would look. Let's get focus. That's how it would look when I would be running it, and I would just be walking it back and forth here, and then just slowly advancing it further in, removing more material, but being careful not to heat it up. Cool thing, since this comes off, is you can just take it down here and dip it into your water tank. So that pretty much wraps up the overview of how the two accessories for the drill bit grinder and the sharpening attachment work on this. As far as the grinder itself, I've gone back and forth with whether or not I want to paint it, and I do not think I want to paint it. Yes, there is some rust here, but this is just from the sparks coming down and hitting this over the years. And I'm afraid if I paint it, that I will take away from some of the history, because this is an original factory paint job, and I don't want to ruin that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to zoom in here so you can get a good idea of what all the decals on the switches are, what everything says on there. I'm going to try to pan you up over here. And for the grinding guards, you can just see they have a chunk of glass in there. And if we come up from underneath, you can see the two lights right there. And then when this thing is turned on, you just have this for sending power up. Yeah, some of these grinders, I've seen models where they would actually have another switch down here in the base, and then they could use that to turn on the lights separately, so you could have the lights on without the motor spinning. This just being a first generation, they didn't have that option in this one. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this walk around video and going over all the accessories of this. If you guys got something out of this, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel out. And as always, have a great day. Thank you guys for watching.